Welcome to Watch and See Truth in History.
The War of 1812 was a pivotal moment in American history. It was a conflict that pitted the young United States against the mighty British Empire. But often overlooked is the war's profound impact on Native Americans. Caught between two warring powers, Native tribes were forced to make impossible choices. Their alliances, their lands, and their very way of life hung in the balance. For Native Americans, the war was not simply a distant conflict between nations. It was a struggle for survival. The westward expansion of American settlers had already encroached upon Native territories, leading to tension and violence. The British, eager to weaken their American rivals, saw an opportunity to exploit these divisions. They courted Native alliances, promising support and protection. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the map of North America. Native tribes, armed with centuries of knowledge of the land and a fierce determination to protect their homelands, would play a decisive role in the battles to come. Their stories of courage, resilience, and ultimate tragedy are woven into the fabric of the War of 1812. This is the story of how a war fought between nations became a turning point in the history of Native Americans. Among the many Native American leaders who emerged during this tumultuous period, Tecumseh stands out as a figure of extraordinary vision and charisma. His name has become synonymous with the struggle for Native American rights and sovereignty. A Shawnee chief, Tecumseh understood that the survival of his people depended on unity. He recognized that the fragmented state of the tribes made them vulnerable to the encroaching American settlers and their relentless expansionist policies. He traveled tirelessly throughout the Northwest Territory, seeking to forge a grand alliance of tribes to resist American expansion. His journeys took him far and wide, from the Great Lakes to the Deep South, as he sought to bring together a diverse array of tribes under a single banner. Tecumseh's message resonated deeply with Native communities. He spoke with a passion and conviction that was hard to ignore, and his words found fertile ground in the hearts of many who were disillusioned with the constant loss of their lands and way of life. He spoke of the sacredness of the land, the importance of preserving traditional ways of life, and the need to stand together against a common enemy. His speeches were not just about resistance, they were about a shared identity and a collective future. His words ignited a spark of hope and defiance in the hearts of many. For the first time in years, there was a sense that unity could be achieved, and with it, the strength to resist the overwhelming forces arrayed against them. Under Tecumseh's leadership, tribes that had long been divided by rivalry and suspicion began to put aside their differences. He was able to bridge gaps that had seemed insurmountable, fostering a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect. He preached a message of pan-Indian unity, urging tribes to see themselves not as separate entities, but as one people fighting for a common cause. This was a revolutionary idea at the time, and it required a leader of exceptional vision to make it a reality. His vision was of a vast Native confederacy, stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, capable of resisting American encroachment. This confederacy would be a formidable force, united in purpose and strong in numbers. Tecumseh's charisma and eloquence made him a powerful force for unity. His ability to articulate a clear and compelling vision drew people to him, and his leadership inspired confidence and loyalty. He was a skilled orator and strategist, capable of inspiring both warriors and chiefs to his cause. His strategic acumen was matched by his ability to communicate complex ideas in a way that was both accessible and motivating. His vision of a united Native resistance movement posed a significant threat to American expansionist ambitions, and his leadership would have a profound impact on the course of the War of 1812. Tecumseh's legacy is a testament to the power of unity and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. With the outbreak of the War of 1812, Tecumseh's pan-Indian alliance took to the warpath. Allied with the British, Native warriors fought with ferocity and determination, eager to defend their homelands and drive back American expansion. They proved to be formidable adversaries, skilled in the art of guerrilla warfare and intimately familiar with the terrain. Native American participation was crucial to several key battles in the War of 1812. At the siege of Fort Detroit, Tecumseh's forces played a decisive role in securing a British victory. Their presence, along with the psychological impact of their war cries, demoralized American forces and contributed to their surrender. The Battle of Brownstown, fought in present-day Michigan, was another significant victory for Tecumseh's alliance. Native warriors, fighting alongside British troops, ambushed an American supply train, dealing a blow to American morale and logistics. These victories demonstrated the strategic importance of Native alliances and the effectiveness of their fighting prowess. Despite these successes, Native communities also faced devastating losses during the war. Villages were burned, crops destroyed, and countless lives were lost in the crossfire. Yet, they continued to fight with unwavering courage, driven by a deep-seated belief in their right to exist and protect their way of life. Section 4. A Legacy Lost, Tecumseh's Death and the Crumbling Alliance. The death of Tecumseh at the Battle of the Thames in 1813 dealt a devastating blow to Native American resistance. Tecumseh was not just a leader, he was the heart and soul of a movement that sought to unite various tribes against the encroaching American settlers. His presence on the battlefield was a rallying point for many, and his strategies had kept the hope of resistance alive. With their charismatic leader gone, the fragile alliance he had forged began to unravel. Tecumseh had managed to bring together tribes with diverse cultures and interests, a feat that required immense diplomatic skill and personal charisma. His death left a leadership vacuum that no one else could fill. Tecumseh's death marked a turning point in the war, shifting the balance of power decisively in favor of the United States. The American forces, now facing a disorganized opposition, were able to advance more effectively. The loss of Tecumseh removed a significant obstacle to American expansion, allowing them to push further into Native territories. Tecumseh's vision of a united Native Confederacy, capable of resisting American expansion, died with him on the battlefield. His dream was not just about military resistance, it was about creating a unified front that could negotiate from a position of strength. Without him, the tribes lacked the cohesion needed to present a united front. His absence created a void in leadership that proved impossible to fill. The leaders who remained were unable to command the same level of respect and loyalty that Tecumseh had. This lack of strong leadership led to internal divisions and weakened the overall resistance effort. Without his guidance and inspiration, the alliance fractured, and individual tribes were left to negotiate their own terms with the victorious Americans. These negotiations often resulted in unfavorable terms for the tribes, as they lacked the collective bargaining power that Tecumseh had envisioned. The loss of Tecumseh was felt deeply by Native communities across the Northwest Territory. He was more than a military leader, he was a symbol of hope and resistance. His death was not just a tactical loss but a profound emotional blow to the communities that had looked to him for leadership and inspiration. He was not only a brilliant military strategist, but also a symbol of hope and resistance. His speeches and actions had inspired many to join the cause, and his leadership had given them a sense of purpose and direction. His death left a void that was felt on both a strategic and emotional level. His death extinguished the dream of a united Native front, leaving many feeling demoralized and vulnerable in the face of continued American expansion. The sense of unity and purpose that Tecumseh had fostered began to dissipate, and the tribes found themselves increasingly isolated and vulnerable. Despite their valiant efforts and significant contributions to the war effort, Native Americans emerged from the War of 1812 in a precarious position. Their contributions had been significant, but without a unified leadership, their efforts were fragmented and less effective. The death of Tecumseh marked the end of an era, and the future of Native tribes in North America looked increasingly uncertain. The loss of their most influential leader left them without a clear path forward, and the challenges they faced seemed more daunting than ever. The dream of a united Native Confederacy had died with Tecumseh, and the tribes were left to navigate an uncertain future on their own. Section 5. Forgotten Promises, the Treaty of Ghent and Native American Hopes. The Treaty of Ghent, signed in 1814, officially ended the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain. This treaty was a significant milestone, bringing an end to years of conflict and bloodshed. It was meant to restore relations and bring peace to the warring nations. However, the treaty made no mention of the Native American allies who had fought alongside both sides. These Native American tribes had played crucial roles in the conflict, hoping to protect their lands and way of life. Native Americans were largely excluded from the peace negotiations, and their sacrifices went unacknowledged. Despite their significant contributions, they were not given a seat at the table, and their voices were silenced in the final agreement. The treaty's silence on Native American land claims and sovereignty had devastating consequences. Without formal recognition or protection, Native American lands were left vulnerable to encroachment and seizure. It paved the way for the United States to assert greater control over native territories, as the British were no longer obligated to recognize their sovereignty. This shift in power dynamics led to increased pressure on native lands and communities. Native Americans were left to face the full force of American expansionism without the support of their former allies. The promises of protection and alliance from the British were now hollow, leaving native tribes to fend for themselves. The Treaty of Ghent marked a betrayal of the trust that many native tribes had placed in the British. They had hoped that their alliance would secure their lands and rights, but instead, they were abandoned. The British, who had once promised support and protection, abandoned their native allies in their hour of need. This abandonment was a harsh blow, shattering the hopes and expectations of many native communities. This betrayal had long-lasting repercussions, sowing seeds of distrust and resentment that would linger for generations. The sense of betrayal and loss would become a painful part of the collective memory of Native American tribes. For Native Americans, the Treaty of Ghent was a bitter reminder of their marginalized status in the eyes of the United States. It underscored the harsh reality that their rights and lands were not considered important in the grand scheme of international diplomacy. It signaled the beginning of a new era of westward expansion, one in which native lands and rights would be systematically eroded. The relentless push westward by American settlers would lead to further displacement and suffering for Native American communities, forever altering their way of life.